Hello and welcome to a new selectors demo with UiPath Studio. Now that we have some experience with selectors, we can dive deeper by exploring selector types. Specifically, we'll focus on the distinction between full and partial selectors. So, what's the difference? Full selectors contain all of the information required to identify a specific UI element. This means that they include the top-level window, as opposed to partial selectors, as we'll see later. The activities that have full selectors are not included in container activities, such as attach window or attach browser. Moreover, the basic recorder generates full selectors. It's recommended to use full selectors when the robot must switch between multiple windows while performing the automation workflow. Partial selectors are enclosed in containers such as open browser or attach window, which store the information related to the top-level window. As a result, partial selectors do not include that information. Their usage is recommended in processes that automate multiple actions in the same window. Note that full selectors are more common in the classic design experience, as most modern UI input and output activities must be placed inside a container. Let's take a look at an example. We'll open Studio and create a new project. We'll add a sequence and use a click activity to indicate one of the elements in the demo MyCRM application, such as the active checkbox here. Let's open the selector editor window. We can see that the first line in the generated selector identifies the application, so this is a full selector. The lines below are used to identify the element inside the application window. Next, let's also generate a partial selector to see the differences between them. As mentioned before, we need a container activity. In this example, let's use an attach window activity. Before adding the click activity, we need to indicate the window that the robot must work in. Now, we can go ahead and add the click activity in the Do section of Attach Browser. The selector of the click activity is not complete. It only contains the bottom nodes. Its top node is inherited from the container activity. Let's see how partial and full selectors relate to using the classic recorders. We'll quickly look at an example of typing into the first name and last name fields. First, using the basic recorder and then the desktop recorder. We'll create a new sequence and start with the basic recorder. Let's change the first name to Jim and clear the field beforehand. We'll change the last name to Young. Now, let's perform the exact same steps, but this time using the desktop recorder. If we have a look at the resulting workflows, we can see that the basic recorder generated two type into activities that have full selectors. As for the desktop recorder, it generated an attach window container. The activities inside it have partial selectors. Moving on, we'll go over one last example of what partial and full selectors look like. But this time, we'll consider the case of web automation. Let's create a new sequence workflow. Now, we'll use the open browser activity and paste the marketplace.uipath.com address. We'll use a click activity to select one of the elements on the web page, such as the Login or Sign Up button here. Let's also use a click outside the open browser container to compare the two selectors. In the first case, our selector is a partial one. In the second, the selector is full. And that's all for this lesson. For a quick recap, full selectors contain all of the information required to identify a specific UI element. It's recommended to use full selectors when the robot must switch between multiple windows while performing the automation workflow. Partial selectors are enclosed in containers such as attach browser or attach window, which store the information related to the top-level window. Their usage is recommended in processes that perform multiple actions in the same window. When it comes to classic recorders, the basic recorder generates full selectors, while the desktop recorder generates partial selectors. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.